The rain fell steadily over Seattle, the kind of endless drizzle that made the city shimmer under the streetlights, but left its people weary. From the top floor of a steel and glass tower overlooking Lake Union, Lucas Reed stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was 45 years old, a billionaire who had built his empire on precision and relentless control. Yet as he stared at the dark waters, a hollow silence pressed against him. Lucas had everything the world told him he should want: money, power, reputation. But he lacked one thing that no amount of investment could guarantee an heir. His 2 marriages had ended in failure, each one leaving him more convinced that love was a weakness he could not afford. Children, however, were different. A child was legacy. A child was continuity. A child was control. On the glass dining table behind him lay a folder stamped with the words "Legacy Program." It contained a carefully drafted contract prepared by the finest legal minds money could hire. All Lucas needed was someone willing to agree. He had decided long ago that he did not need affection, companionship, or intimacy. What he needed was a womb, a willing partner, in an arrangement stripped of emotion. That night, while the city drowned itself in rain, Lucas ordered his driver to take him through downtown. The Maybach slid silently along wet streets, headlights cutting through mist. Lucas watched the world blur past until something caught his eye. On the corner of a deserted street beneath a flickering neon sign, a young woman sat cross-legged on the pavement. She was sketching on a piece of cardboard, with a stub of charcoal, her hair plastered to her forehead by the rain. The passers-by ignored her, as if she were invisible, but Lucas's gaze lingered. There was a strange steadiness in the way she moved the charcoal, as though the storm around her didn't exist. He told himself to look away, to focus on the folder waiting at home. But the red light held him there, and in that brief pause he saw the fire in her eyes, fierce, tired, unyielding. "Circle back," he ordered. The car pulled to the curb. Lucas stepped out with an umbrella, his tailored suit immaculate despite the downpour. He stood a few feet from her. "You draw like you're begging the world to listen," he said. She looked up, startled. Her face was sharp with exhaustion, her eyes an icy blue that cut through the gloom. "I draw because it's the only thing I haven't lost," she replied. Lucas studied her for a moment. She was young, perhaps 30, though hardship had added years. She had the thin frame of someone who had gone hungry too often, yet she carried herself with a defiant dignity. "Coffee," he said. 10 minutes. "My treat." She raised an eyebrow. "If this is some rich guy pity project, save your money. I'm not a charity case." "I don't do charity," Lucas replied, his voice even. "I do business. Coffee." Something in his tone, the command of a man used to being obeyed, made her hesitate. She gathered her sketches and followed him. Inside a small cafe, warmth wrapped around them. They slid into a booth at the back. The waitress poured steaming coffee, eyeing the strange pair curiously, the billionaire in his immaculate suit and the homeless woman in a threadbare hoodie. "What's your name?" Lucas asked. "Maya Rivera," she said cautiously. "Why does it matter?" "Because I don't do business with strangers." Her laugh was sharp and brittle. "Business with me? You've got the wrong girl." Lucas leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "I have a proposition. It will change your life." Maya narrowed her eyes. "What kind of proposition? I want you to have my child." The words landed like stones on the table. For a moment the noise of the cafe faded, leaving only the pounding of rain on the roof. "You're joking," she said flatly. "I'm not. I'll cover every expense, provide you with a home security medical care. When the child is born, you'll receive a sum of money large enough to start over anywhere you choose. Maya let out a disbelieving laugh. That's insane. Who offers something like that to a stranger on the street? The kind of man who knows what he wants and doesn't waste time, Lucas said. His tone was cold, but his eyes were steady. Her hands tightened around the mug. And what happens after the baby is born? You'll be free, he said simply. Free with money, with choices you don't have now. Maya shook her head, half angry, half incredulous. No sane woman would agree to this. No desperate woman would refuse, Lucas countered. You're sleeping on sidewalks. I'm offering you warmth, food, stability. In return, you give me something only you can give. His words sliced through her defenses. She hated that he was right. Every night, she braved hunger, cold, and fear. Yet the thought of carrying a child only to give it away was unbearable. And why not adopt, she demanded. Why not find some socialite eager for a family? Because I want control, Lucas said, his voice low. My bloodline, my child without complications. Adoption is compromise. I don't compromise. The cold certainty in his tone sent a shiver down her spine. She knew he meant every word. I need time, Maya said finally. You have 24 hours, Lucas replied. After that, the offer is gone. He stood, leaving a crisp business card on the table. Call if you decide to stop surviving and start living. Then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him. Maya sat frozen, staring at the card. Lucas Reed. She knew the name everyone in Seattle did. Billionaire investor. Ruthless strategist. Untouchable. She tucked the card into her pocket, her mind a storm louder than the rain outside. Maya hardly slept that night. The shelter was noisy as usual, snoring, coughing, restless bodies shifting on thin mattresses, but it wasn't the noise that kept her awake. It was the echo of Lucas Reed's words, comfort, stability, a new life. She turned the black business card over and over in her hands, the edges already softening from her touch. Could she really do it? Carry a stranger's child, take his money and walk away. Her mother's voice rose from memory. Opportunities knock only once. The question is, do you open the door? But another voice fought back sharper and crueler. What kind of woman sells her own child? By dawn, her head ached from the battle. She splashed her face with cold water in the shelter bathroom, stared into the cracked mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hollow cheeks, tired eyes. But beneath the exhaustion, there was steel. Maya walked out into the gray morning, the card clutched tightly in her palm. At Reed Global headquarters, the receptionist barely blinked when a soaked, disheveled woman walked through the glass doors. Perhaps she had been warned. She picked up the phone, murmured something, and within minutes, Maya found herself in an elevator climbing faster than her nerves could handle. Lucas's office was everything she expected, vast, immaculate, intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city like a king surveying his kingdom. Lucas stood at his desk, hands folded as if he had known she would come. You've decided, he said, not a question. Maya lifted her chin. I'll do it. But on one condition, I'm not livestock. I want respect. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then he nodded slowly. Respect is earned, Ms. Rivera. You'll have mine. A door opened and a woman entered carrying a stack of documents. She was polished, efficient, with a calm authority that immediately set Maya at ease. This is Chloe Park, my chief of staff, Lucas said. She'll handle the details. Chloe offered her hand, her grip firm but warm. I'll be your point of contact. Think of me as the bridge between you and all this. All this, Maya repeated with a half-smile, gesturing to the sleek office the city spread below the billionaire standing like a marble statue. Chloe guided her to the conference table, where the documents waited. This outlines the agreement, she explained gently. Medical care, housing expenses, all covered. Upon successful delivery, you'll receive a trust fund large enough to start anywhere you choose. In return, you'll relinquish all rights to the child. Maya's stomach twisted. Seeing it written in black and white made it brutally real. You'll also be required to stay at Mr. Reed's residence during the pregnancy, Chloe continued, for security and health reasons. Maya looked up sharply. So I'll be living with him. Lucas spoke before Chloe could. You'll have your own suite staff, anything you need. I won't interfere unless necessary. Maya studied him. His face was unreadable, carved from stone. He wasn't offering kindness. He was offering certainty. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen. She could almost hear the universe holding its breath. Then she signed. That evening, a sleek black car pulled up to the shelter. Chloe was waiting with a suitcase and a reassuring smile. You don't have to bring anything, she said. We'll provide clothes, toiletries, whatever you need. Maya hugged her worn sketchbook to her chest. This comes with me, she said firmly. Of course, Chloe said. The drive to Lucas's mansion felt like traveling to another planet. As the gates swung open, Maya's breath caught. The house rose from manicured gardens like a monument to wealth, glass, stone, and steel, every angle screaming power. Inside, crystal chandeliers glittered above marble floors. Staff moved quietly, efficient as shadows. Maya felt small, out of place, like an intruder in a museum. Chloe led her to a suite larger than any apartment she had ever lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the lake, and the bed looked like it could swallow her whole. If you need anything, just press this button, Chloe explained, pointing to a sleek panel on the wall. Meals are served 3 times a day, but snacks are always available. Medical staff will visit tomorrow for your first checkup. Maya sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. This is too much. Chloe's smile softened. It's not charity, Maya. It's part of the deal. But between us, she hesitated. It's okay to feel out of place. Anyone would. After Chloe left, Maya lay back on the impossibly soft bed. The ceiling stretched above her like a sky she couldn't touch. Yesterday, she had slept on concrete. Tonight, she was wrapped in luxury. But instead of comfort, she felt a crushing weight, the knowledge that she wasn't a guest. She was part of a transaction. The next morning, Maya woke to sunlight spilling across the room. For a fleeting second, she forgot where she was. Then the knock at the door reminded her. Chloe entered with a clipboard. Ready for your first appointment? Maya nodded nervously. Dr. Ravi Patel, a calm man with kind eyes, conducted the examination in the mansion's private medical wing. Healthy, he pronounced. Strong. You'll need proper nutrition and regular checkups, but everything looks good. Lucas appeared at the doorway as Dr. Patel packed his bag. His presence filled the room like a shadow stretching across the floor. Is everything satisfactory? He asked, his tone businesslike. Dr. Patel nodded. Perfectly normal. She's healthy. Lucas's eyes flicked to Maya. If you need anything, inform Chloe. I want this process smooth. Process, Maya repeated, her voice edged with bitterness. He met her gaze without flinching. That's what this is. A process. Don't mistake it for something else. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she realized how cold this arrangement truly was. But she also knew she had chosen it. She had signed the contract. There was no turning back. That evening, Maya wandered into the mansion's vast garden. The air smelled of roses and damp earth. She found a bench by the fountain and pulled out her sketchbook. The lines came slowly at first, then faster, as if her hands needed to pour out everything her heart couldn't say. She was so absorbed, she didn't hear the footsteps until he spoke. "You draw as if the paper owes you an apology," Lucas said quietly. She glanced up, startled. He was standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "And you talk as if every word is a contract," she shot back. For a moment something flickered in his eyes, amusement, maybe even admiration. Then it was gone. "Dinner is at 7, he said, turning away. As he walked back toward the house, Maya realized she had just glimpsed the man beneath the armor. Brief, fleeting, but real. And it scared her more than the contract itself. Sometimes one small sound can break the walls even money built. The days in the mansion blurred together in quiet rituals. Meals arrived on silver trays, appointments with Dr. Patel were scheduled with military precision, and every detail of Maya's existence was documented as though she were an experiment rather than a woman. She tried to adjust. The hot showers, the plush bed, the endless supply of food things she had once dreamed of only reminded her how far she was from the life she had known. At night, she often wandered the balcony outside her suite, staring across Lake Union at the glittering city. She told herself she had made the right choice, that she was buying a future with each day she endured. But doubt crept in with the night air curling around her ribs like ivy. One afternoon, Chloe knocked gently and entered with her usual calm energy. "You have another checkup with Dr. Patel today," she said. Maya nodded, closing her sketchbook. The drawings had shifted lately, less of the faceless strangers she used to capture, more of rounded forms, small hands, hearts within hearts. The news of triplets transformed the mansion. Staff moved quietly, but with a new urgency, doubling the routines of care. Doctors visited more frequently, Chloe coordinated schedules with meticulous precision, and the nursery plans expanded from 1 room to 3. Yet the most profound change wasn't in the house. It was in Lucas. He began appearing where Maya least expected him, at breakfast, at doctor's appointments, even in the garden where she sketched. He still wore the mask of composure, but beneath it something had shifted. His questions were no longer just about her health or the children's progress. "Are you eating enough protein?" he asked one morning, watching as she pushed scrambled eggs around her plate. She smirked. "Is that concern I hear, or are you auditing my diet like a quarterly report?" "Both," he admitted dryly. And for the first time, she laughed. Maya tried to guard her heart, but his presence pressed against the barriers she had built. Late at night, she caught herself replaying moments. A softened glance, an unguarded smile, the rare sound of his laugh. Still fear lingered like a shadow. She remembered the contract, the promise she had made, the future she had signed away. No matter what she felt, the paper in Lucas's desk drawer held power over her. One evening, unable to sleep, she wandered into the mansion's library. Books lined the walls, their spines gleaming in the lamplight. She ran her fingers along the shelves until she found a worn volume of poetry. Settling into an armchair, she began to read aloud softly, letting the rhythm of the words soothe her. She didn't notice Lucas until he spoke from the doorway. "You read as if the words are secrets only you're allowed to hear." Startled, she closed the book. "I didn't know anyone else was awake." "I often am," he said, stepping into the room. "Sleep has never been my ally." He sat across from her, his posture relaxed for once. "What were you reading, Pablo Neruda?" she replied. "My mother loved his poems. She used to say they were written for women like her, women who gave everything and asked for nothing." Lucas tilted his head. "And do you see yourself in those words?" She hesitated, then nodded. more than I'd like to admit. Their eyes met, and the silence between them carried a weight no contract could define. The next morning, Maya found a note slipped under her door. For when sleep won't come. Attached was another book, this one a collection of modern American poetry. She traced the bold letters of his initials at the bottom LR. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't even an apology. But it was a crack in the wall, and it terrified her. Weeks later, as the pregnancy grew heavier, Maya began to struggle more with simple tasks. Rising from a chair required effort, and her back ached constantly. One afternoon, as she tried to carry a basket of laundry down the hall, Lucas appeared, suddenly taking it from her hands. "You shouldn't be lifting this," he said firmly. She bristled. "I'm pregnant, Lucas, not broken." "You're carrying 3 children," he countered. "That makes you priceless cargo." Her lips parted in shock. Priceless cargo. Not an asset, not a transaction, something precious. "Since when do you speak like a human being?" she teased, trying to mask the warmth blooming in her chest. "Since I realized I want them to arrive safely," he said, his voice low. Her heart skipped. She wanted to believe it was more than that he wanted her safe too. One stormy night, the power flickered and rain lashed against the windows. Maya sat curled on the couch, sketchbook in her lap, when Lucas entered with 2 cups of tea. "I don't drink tea," she said, raising an eyebrow. "It's chamomile," he replied, setting it on the table. Dr. Patel recommended it for relaxation. She accepted it reluctantly, inhaling the steam. "Since when do you take medical advice personally?" "Since those 3 lives became mine," he answered quietly. Then after a pause he added, "And maybe since you became part of this house." The tea trembled in her hands. She stared at him, stunned by the confession hidden in his words. "Lucas," she began, but her voice faltered. He shook his head, standing abruptly. "Forget I said anything." But she couldn't. That night, lying awake, Maya pressed her hands to her belly. "What am I doing?" she whispered to the children inside her. "Falling for a man who sees everything as a contract. What happens when he remembers I'm not supposed to matter?" Her heart ached with the truth she was already falling, and it terrified her more than hunger ever had. Chloe noticed the shift, too. One afternoon she found Maya in the kitchen humming as she peeled an apple. "You're glowing," Chloe said gently. Maya laughed. "That's just pregnancy hormones." Chloe studied her. "Or maybe it's something else." "Don't underestimate what you mean here, Maya." Maya froze. "It's not supposed to mean anything. It's an arrangement. A contract." Chloe's smile was soft but knowing. "Paper doesn't stop the heart. I've worked with Lucas for years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Maya's throat tightened. "That's dangerous, Chloe. For both of us." The danger became real a week later. Lucas called a meeting in his study, spreading new documents across the desk. "Given the risk with multiples, I've had additional clauses drafted," he explained. "If complications arise, certain decisions will fall to me exclusively." Maya's eyes blazed. "You're rewriting my body into a contract again." "It's for safety," he insisted. "Control prevents chaos." "No," she snapped, and slamming her hand on the desk. "This isn't a merger, Lucas. These are children. My children." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then Chloe stepped forward. "She's right," she said quietly. "Fear wears a tie and calls itself policy. Don't let fear dictate this." Lucas's jaw tightened. He looked from Chloe to Maya, and for once he didn't have an answer. He swept the papers aside, his shoulders heavy. That night, Maya sat on the balcony, shaken. Lucas joined her silently, holding out a blanket. She accepted it without a word, pulling it over her shoulders. Finally, he spoke. I don't know how to stop planning. Then stop planning me, she said softly. Their eyes met, and in the fragile quiet something passed between them, something neither paper nor fear could contain. The medical wing was quiet, filled with sterile light and the faint hum of machines. Dr. Patel greeted her warmly. We'll do an ultrasound today, he explained. We might hear the heartbeat. Maya's breath caught. She lay back on the table, her pulse quickening, as cold gel spread across her skin. Dr. Patel moved the probe gently. The monitor flickered shadows and light dancing across the screen. And then there it was. A faint, rapid thrum filled the room, small yet insistent, like the beating of a bird's wings trapped in her chest. Maya's eyes filled instantly. She pressed her hand over her mouth, overwhelmed. That, Dr. Patel said softly, is your baby. Maya couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. For so long she had felt invisible, discarded. But here inside her was proof she still mattered. Proof she could create something beautiful. At the doorway, a voice broke the silence. Incredible. She turned her head sharply. Lucas stood there, arms folded, his face unreadable. She hadn't heard him enter. Dr. Patel smiled. Perfectly healthy, he assured him. Everything looks strong. Lucas nodded once, then his gaze shifted back to the monitor. Something flickered in his eyes, a crack in the stone, a softness she hadn't expected. Later, as Dr. Patel packed up, Lucas remained at the edge of the room. Maya sat up, wiping her eyes quickly. You came, she said, surprised at her own words. This concerns me, he said simply. I needed to be sure it was real. Her laugh was shaky, almost bitter. It's real, Lucas. More real than anything you can buy. For a moment he said nothing. Then quietly, I know. That evening, Maya found a package on her bed. Inside was a sketchbook and a set of high-quality pencils. A note lay on top for the quiet hours. L. She stared at it, torn between suspicion and gratitude. When she finally carried it down to the garden, she found him already there, standing by the fountain. You can't buy trust with gifts, she told him, holding up the package. I'm not buying, he said evenly. I noticed you draw. I thought it might help. His tone was calm, almost awkward, as though he wasn't used to explaining himself. Trying isn't your usual style, is it? She asked. He met her gaze, unflinching. I'm learning. She held the sketchbook to her chest. Trying counts, she admitted softly. As the weeks passed, the pregnancy began to show. Maya's mornings were heavy with nausea. Her energy drained, yet she carried herself with quiet determination. Lucas remained distant most of the time, buried in work, but occasionally he appeared in unexpected ways. Once passing her in the hall, he paused. Are you well? He asked. She shrugged. As well as someone growing another human can be. He nodded as if filing away the information. If you need anything, Chloe will arrange it. It wasn't warmth, but it wasn't indifference either. One evening, Maya sat in the living room flipping through an old novel she had pulled from the shelf. The silence was almost comforting, until Lucas entered carrying a folder of documents. He stopped, surprised to see her. I didn't expect you here, he said. And I didn't expect you to notice me, she replied dryly. He frowned slightly, but set his papers down and sat across from her. Are you adjusting? She hesitated. It still feels strange. Like I'm living someone else's life. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. This is temporary. It will feel less strange once you accept that. That's what you do, isn't it? She challenged. Plan everything until nothing feels strange. That's how I built my empire, he replied without hesitation. Planning prevents failure. She gave a short laugh. You can plan all you want, Lucas, but you can't control emotions. The words hit him harder than she realized. He leaned back silent, his jaw tight. For the first time, she saw her words had landed somewhere beyond his armor. Without another word, she rose and left the room, leaving him staring at the papers he no longer had interest in reading. That night, Maya stood on the balcony, the lake shimmering under the moon. She wrapped her arms around herself, whispering to the unborn child, "Am I doing the right thing? Giving you away before I even know you inside unseen." Lucas watched her from his own window. Her vulnerability unsettled him. She wasn't just a contract. She was a woman carrying the only thing he had ever admitted he wanted. And against all logic, he found himself curious not just about the child, but about her. The next doctor's visit came quicker than expected. Lucas insisted on accompanying her this time. "It's necessary," he said, though the tone of his voice betrayed something else. Maya said nothing, too focused on the tension between them. At the clinic, Dr. Patel prepared the ultrasound again. The gel was cold, the wand steady. The monitor lit up, and once again the rapid flutter of life filled the room. But this time something was different. Dr. Patel's brow furrowed briefly, then softened into a smile. "Well, this is unexpected," he said warmly. "You're carrying twins." The words slammed into Maya's chest. Twins. Her breath caught joy and fear twisting together. Tears brimmed again, unstoppable. She placed both hands on her stomach, as if she could already feel them. Beside her, Lucas's composure faltered for the first time. His eyes widened, his jaw slackened. "Two," he whispered, as if the concept defied calculation. "Two," Dr. Patel confirmed, his voice gentle. "Both strong, both healthy." The sound of two heartbeats filled the room, intertwining like music written before either of them had existed. Maya's tears spilled freely, her heart split open with love and dread. She was already attached more than she wanted to admit. Lucas stood frozen, staring at the monitor. For the first time, the billionaire who believed in control realized he had none. The discovery of twins shifted the air in the mansion. What had begun as a calculated arrangement now pulsed with unpredictability. Two heartbeats. Two futures. Maya felt at first an overwhelming sense that she was no longer just surviving, but carrying something too vast, too sacred, to reduce to a contract. She spent evenings on the balcony, whispering promises to the children she had sworn she wouldn't grow attached to. She told herself not to fall in love with them, but every flutter in her belly betrayed her. Lucas, meanwhile, buried himself in documents. His empire thrived on precision, but this new development had no margin for error. He doubled the medical staff, reviewed contingency plans, even instructed Chloe to prepare 2 nurseries instead of 1. Yet beneath the spreadsheets, something gnawed at him. When he closed his eyes, he heard 2 small heartbeats instead of the silence that had once been his companion. Weeks passed. Maya's belly grew, her body heavy with the weight of life. The doctors scheduled a more detailed scan to monitor the twins. She dreaded the appointments not for the medical process, but because each time she saw their outlines on the screen, her heart tangled deeper in a web she couldn't escape. On the day of the scan, Lucas accompanied her again. He claimed it was for efficiency, but the truth was harder to admit. He needed to hear those heartbeats himself. Dr. Patel adjusted the monitor, his expression calm as always. The wand glided across Maya's skin, the screen flickering with blurred shadows. Then came the familiar sound, 2 rapid, steady heartbeats. Relief softened Maya's features, but Dr. Patel's brows lifted. He leaned closer to the screen, his lips parting in surprise. "What is it?" Maya asked, her voice sharp with fear. Dr. Patel smiled slowly, shaking his head in disbelief. "Well, it seems we were mistaken." Maya gripped the edge of the table. "Mistaken how?" The doctor pointed at the screen. "There's a third." For a moment, silence drowned the room. A third," Maya whispered, her mind spinning. "Yes," Dr. Patel said warmly. "You're carrying triplets, all three healthy, all three strong." Maya's chest rose and fell in rapid bursts. Her hands flew to her stomach as if to cradle all three at once. Tears blurred her vision. Triplets. She breathed, laughter and sobs colliding. Beside her, Lucas Reed, man of marble, master of certainty, stood absolutely still. His carefully built walls cracked open, and something raw surged through. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. 3-3. Dr. Patel confirmed with a smile. "Congratulations." The drive back to the mansion was wrapped in silence, but it wasn't the cold silence they had once shared. It was heavy, trembling, alive. Maya leaned her forehead against the window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. Triplets. The word echoed inside her like a drumbeat. She wanted to laugh, cry, scream all at once. Lucas sat rigid, his hands clasped tightly. His mind, usually a machine of logic, spun out of control. For the first time, numbers failed him. He couldn't calculate this. He couldn't plan it into neat columns. 3 lives. 3 children who would call him father. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "Guess your certainty just got crowded." Despite himself, Lucas let out a breath that was almost a laugh. He glanced at her, and for the first time his eyes carried something beyond cold calculation. They carried awe. That evening, Chloe found Lucas in his study staring at the fire, as though it held answers. "Triplets," she said gently. He nodded once. "Triplets." Her eyes softened. "You're not afraid of responsibility, Lucas. You're afraid of being human." He looked at her sharply. But Chloe didn't flinch. She had worked by his side long enough to know when he was breaking. "They'll change you," she said softly, "whether you want them to or not." Maya adjusted to her new reality slowly. Every movement reminded her she was carrying not 1, not 2, but 3 lives. The mansion staff fussed over her, doctors checked in weekly, and Chloe became a quiet anchor. But the weight she carried wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, overwhelming. One night, unable to sleep, she wandered into the garden. The moonlight silvered the roses, the fountain whispering like a lullaby. She pressed her hands to her stomach and whispered, "I don't know if I'm strong enough." A voice startled her. "You are." She turned. Lucas stood nearby, his expression unreadable. "I've been watching you," he admitted. "You carry more strength than you realize." She let out a bitter laugh. "You don't know me, Lucas." "I know resilience when I see it," he said quietly. "I've built empires on less." Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, the air between them softened. As the pregnancy advanced, Maya began to struggle with the physical strain. Her back ached, her ankles swelled, and exhaustion weighed her down. Yet every time she thought she couldn't go on, a flutter reminded her why she must. Lucas surprised her one afternoon by appearing at her door with a simple question. "Do you need anything?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Why do you care? Because they matter," he said, gesturing toward her belly. Then after a pause, he added, "And maybe you do too." Her breath caught. For the first time, she saw him not as the untouchable billionaire, but as a man fumbling with feelings he didn't know how to express. At their next appointment, the 3 heartbeats filled the room like a choir. Maya cried openly, her hands trembling. Lucas didn't speak, but his eyes stayed fixed on the screen, and his hand hovered close enough to hers that she could feel its warmth. When they left the clinic, Maya whispered almost to herself, "I'm already in love with them." Lucas glanced at her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "So am I," he admitted. The words were simple, but they cracked something open inside her. For the first time, she wondered if this arrangement, this impossible, improbable deal, might lead to something neither of them had planned. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Winds howled through the trees, rain battered the glass walls of the mansion, and thunder rattled the earth like a warning bell. Maya paced her suite, one hand pressed against her aching back, the other cradling her belly. The triplets had been restless all evening, their movements sharper, more insistent. She tried to breathe through the discomfort, but a sudden stabbing pain made her double over. "Not yet," she whispered, panic rising. "It's too soon." Another pain seized her, stronger, closer. Her breaths grew ragged. She fumbled for the call panel but collapsed to her knees before she could reach it. The door burst open. Chloe rushed in, her eyes wide. "Maya, I think it's happening." Maya gasped. Chloe didn't hesitate. "Lucas," she shouted, her voice slicing through the storm. Within seconds, Lucas was there. His usual composure fractured at the sight of Maya, pale and trembling on the floor. "Call an ambulance," he ordered sharply. "No time," Chloe said, already grabbing her phone. "The storm's knocked half the roads out. The hospital's 20 minutes by car if we're lucky." "I'll drive," Lucas said instantly. He scooped Maya into his arms as if she weighed nothing. His jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with something raw. Maya clutched at his shirt, her nails digging in. "Don't be my client," she whispered through the pain. "Be here." His chest tightened. "I'm here," he promised, and for the first time he meant it. The Maybach tore through the storm wipers, thrashing against the torrent. Lucas gripped the wheel with one hand, the other holding Maya's trembling fingers. Chloe sat in the back, murmuring calm words, her phone pressed to her ear as she coordinated with the hospital. Maya's cries cut through the roar of thunder. "I can't." "Yes, you can," Lucas said firmly, his voice low but fierce. "Breathe with me. In. Out. You're not alone." She squeezed his hand, desperate, terrified. And for a fleeting second, in the middle of chaos, she believed him. They burst into the hospital, soaked and breathless. Nurses rushed forward with a gurney. Dr. Patel appeared, his calm expression a lifeline. "Triplets," Chloe said quickly. "Contractions started 30 minutes ago." Dr. Patel nodded. "We're ready. Let's move." Maya's hand slipped from Lucas's as they wheeled her toward the delivery room. Panic gripped him like a vice. For once, he couldn't follow, couldn't command, couldn't control. He stood frozen in the hallway, the storm outside echoing the storm inside him. Chloe touched his arm gently. "She's strong. So are they." But Lucas shook his head. "I don't care about strength. I care about losing them." His voice cracked, the first admission of fear in years. Inside the delivery room blazed with light and urgency. Maya screamed as the contractions tore through her. Nurses moved quickly, Dr. Patel issuing calm instructions. "Baby A coming fast," he announced. Maya's body convulsed with effort. Then a sharp cry pierced the room. A boy. They placed him briefly against her chest before whisking him away for checks. "Baby B girl," Dr. Patel called. Another cry, smaller but fierce. Maya sobbed, clutching at the edge of the bed. She was nearly spent, her body trembling, when Dr. Patel's voice rose again. One more. Maya's mind spun. One more. The third. With a final desperate push, the room filled with another cry, thin but alive. A girl. Tears streamed down Maya's face. All three, she gasped. All three, Dr. Patel confirmed, smiling beneath his mask. Strong. Breathing. Perfect. Maya collapsed back against the pillows, relief and exhaustion washing over her like the storm outside. In the hallway, Lucas heard the cries. 3 distinct voices, high and insistent. His knees nearly buckled. For so long, silence had been his only companion. Now life itself shouted through the walls. When Dr. Patel emerged, Lucas rushed forward. Are they? They're here, healthy, Dr. Patel assured him. 2 girls, 1 boy. Maya is stable. Lucas's chest heaved, his eyes burning. He nodded, unable to speak. Moments later, he was led inside. Maya lay pale but glowing, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Beside her, 3 tiny bundles rested in bassinets, their cries softening to whimpers. Lucas approached slowly, as though afraid they might vanish if he moved too quickly. The nurse placed the boy in his arms. For a man who had signed contracts worth billions without blinking, Lucas now shook like a leaf. The baby's weight was feather light, yet heavier than anything he had ever carried. Hi, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm your dad. The boy blinked, tiny fists curling. Lucas's throat closed. For the first time, the billionaire felt powerless, and he welcomed it. Maya watched through tear-blurred eyes as Lucas bent his head, pressing a trembling kiss to the baby's forehead. Something inside her shifted, aching and hopeful all at once. Hours later, the storm subsided. Dawn painted the sky in muted golds. Lucas sat by Maya's bedside, 2 of the babies nestled against his chest. The third cradled in Maya's arms. The room was quiet, filled only with the soft sounds of newborns. Lucas glanced at the contract lying on the table, the paper that had once defined everything. His jaw tightened. With deliberate care, he reached for it, tore it down the middle, then again and again, until it was nothing but scraps. Maya's eyes widened. What are you doing? This kept me safe, he said, his voice steady. But it also kept me small. I don't want small anymore. Grand gestures fade, Lucas, she whispered, though her tears betrayed her. Then I'll make small ones, he promised. Every day. Diapers at 2, bottles at 4, love at every hour in between. Chloe, watching quietly from the doorway, pressed a hand to her chest. She had never seen him like this. Maya gazed at him, her heart torn between fear and longing. And if you can't keep that promise, then I'll learn, he said simply. Because they deserve it, and so do you. Her breath caught. Against every defense, she believed him. As the morning sun broke fully, Maya whispered to the babies, You were born in a storm. Maybe that means you'll grow up fierce. Lucas smiled faintly, his eyes still damp. Or maybe it means they'll grow up knowing they were loved from the very first thunder. Their fingers intertwined above the bassinets. 3 tiny lives breathed between them, fragile yet unshakable. And for the first time, neither of them felt alone. The weeks after the storm blurred into sleepless nights and fragile mornings. The triplets demanded everything, food, warmth, comfort, and gave nothing but their cries. Yet to Maya, each cry was a song, proof they were alive, proof she hadn't failed them. Her body ached from the delivery, her strength slow to return, but she refused to let exhaustion steal her joy. She sang lullabies her mother once hummed, sketched their tiny faces during rare moments of quiet, and pressed kisses to their downy heads. as if to memorize every detail. Lucas surprised her most of all. The man who once measured life in contracts now measured nights in feedings and diapers. He learned quickly, fumbling at first with bottles and blankets, but refusing to give up. When one child cried, he was there before the staff, his large hands awkward yet gentle as he rocked the baby against his chest. "You don't have to do this," Maya whispered one night, watching him pace the nursery with their son in his arms. "I promised I would," Lucas replied simply, his eyes never leaving the tiny face. Chloe often lingered in the doorway, her lips curving into quiet smiles. She had known Lucas for years, had seen him command boardrooms and crush competitors, but she had never seen him undone by something so small, so helpless. One evening, as Maya rocked one of the girls, Chloe sat beside her. "He's changing," she said softly. Maya brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. "Or maybe he's finally showing who he really is." Chloe tilted her head. "And you? Are you changing too?" Maya hesitated. Her heart already knew the answer, but fear held her tongue. "I can't let myself believe this is more than temporary." Chloe's gaze was kind but steady. "Paper may burn, Maya, but I've learned something watching the two of you. Hearts don't sign contracts, they break them." As spring unfolded, the mansion softened. The sterile quiet gave way to laughter, to the coos of babies, to the rhythm of a family learning itself. The triplets grew stronger, their cries louder, their eyes brighter. Lucas began to notice things he never had before. The way sunlight dappled across Maya's hair when she bent over the bassinets, the way her laughter filled the hall more completely than any chandelier. He found himself lingering, watching, memorizing. One afternoon, he found her in the garden sketchbook, balanced on her knees, as the babies slept nearby in bassinets shaded by parasols. "What are you drawing?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. She tilted the page toward him. It was a portrait, 3 tiny hands reaching for one much larger. "It's not finished," she said quickly, embarrassed. He studied it, something tightening in his chest. "It's perfect," he murmured. Her cheeks flushed. She looked away, but the warmth in her chest lingered long after he left. The cracks in their walls widened. At dinner one evening, Maya teased him about his inability to fold baby clothes. He countered with a rare grin, confessing that he had once paid someone to fold his shirts because he couldn't stand creases. Their laughter echoed through the dining hall, startling the staff unused to such sounds. Later that night, as he carried one of the babies back to the nursery, Lucas paused at her door. "Good night, Maya," he said quietly. She smiled, heart fluttering. "Good night, Lucas." It was simple, ordinary, and it meant everything. Still, fear clung to Maya like a shadow. She knew how easily this could shatter. One signature had bound them. Another could break them. She couldn't forget the contract, even torn, or the fact that their worlds remained galaxies apart. One sleepless night, she confided in Chloe. "What if he changes his mind? What if I end up back on the street?" Chloe took her hands firmly. "You're not the woman I met in that cafe anymore. And he's not the man who offered you that deal. Whatever happens, you've both already changed each other. That can't be undone." Maya wanted to believe her, but hope was dangerous. A turning point came one quiet afternoon. Maya sat on the floor of the nursery, the 3 babies sprawled on a blanket before her. She made faces, earning tiny gurgles of laughter. Lucas entered silently, pausing at the doorway. For a long moment, he just watched. Maya's laughter mingled with the baby's joy, filling the room with something money could never buy. Something he had thought he didn't need. Finally, he stepped forward, kneeling beside her. "I don't remember the last time I heard laughter like this in this house," he admitted. Maya looked at him, startled by the vulnerability in his tone. Maybe it was waiting for the right people to move in. Their eyes locked, and for once neither looked away. That evening, as the sun set over the lake, Lucas stood on the balcony with Maya. The babies slept inside, their tiny breaths a lullaby. "I used to think control was peace," Lucas said quietly. And now Maya asked. He turned to her, his expression open, unguarded. "Now I think peace is this chaos noise, sleepless nights. And somehow it feels perfect." Her breath caught. She wanted to reach for him to close the space between them. But fear held her back. Instead, she whispered, "Don't promise me perfect, Lucas. Promise me real." He looked at her for a long time, then nodded. "Real," he said softly. "Every day." Inside, Chloe watched from the shadows of the hallway, a smile curving her lips. For years, she had served a man who believed love was weakness. Tonight, she saw a man learning it was strength. And for the first time, she believed this house was no longer a fortress, it was a home. The city skyline glowed beneath a setting sun as Lucas adjusted his tie in the penthouse mirror. His reflection stared back at him, sharp, suit-controlled posture eyes that betrayed more than he wanted to admit. Tonight was not just another gala. It was a gathering of investors, politicians, and high society families. For years, these were the only people whose approval mattered. But now, as he thought of the 3 small lives asleep in the nursery and the woman who had changed everything, he realized their approval was worth nothing if it meant losing her. Maya had tried to talk him out of going. "You don't owe them anything," she had whispered while holding one of the babies earlier that afternoon. Her eyes had carried both fear and defiance. "If you stand in that room and let them judge me, judge us, you'll lose me, Lucas. Not because I don't love you, but because I can't survive being erased." Her words had burned into him all day. When he entered the ballroom, chandeliers blazing and champagne flutes clinking, whispers rippled instantly. He knew what they saw, the reclusive billionaire who had suddenly appeared in public with a woman once homeless, now mother of his children. Some regarded him with admiration, others with disdain. At his side, Maya held her head high, wearing a simple dress Chloe had chosen for her. She looked breathtaking, not because of diamonds or silk, but because of the quiet strength in her eyes. She was terrified he could feel it in the way her fingers trembled against his arm, but she did not let go. A prominent board member approached, voice slick with false warmth. "Lucas, wonderful to see you out again. And this must be your guest." His gaze swept over Maya with poorly concealed condescension. Lucas tightened his grip around her hand. "This is Maya Collins," he said firmly. "The mother of my children, my partner." The board member faltered, smile freezing. Around them, murmurs grew louder. Maya's cheeks flushed, but she stood taller. Another voice, sharper, cut through the crowd. "Surely this is a temporary arrangement, Lucas. You can't expect us to believe I expect nothing from you." Lucas interrupted, his tone steel. "But you will believe this, Maya and our children are my family. Anyone who disrespects them disrespects me." The room fell into stunned silence. For the first time in his career, Lucas didn't care about the investors' opinions, the headlines that would follow, or the power plays behind champagne glasses. All that mattered was the woman standing beside him, eyes wide with disbelief and something softer, hope. The evening blurred after that. Some offered hollow congratulations, others quietly withdrew, but Lucas never let go of Maya's hand. When the music swelled and couples moved to the dance floor, he turned to her. "I'm not much of a dancer," he admitted, his voice low. "Neither am I," she whispered back. "Then we'll be terrible together." He guided her onto the floor. As they swayed beneath the crystal light, Maya felt her walls crumble. This was no longer the man who had once tried to buy her womb like a business deal. This was a man who had torn up his own contract, who had risked his reputation before a ruthless crowd who was choosing her openly. When the gala ended, the drive back to the mansion was quiet. The city lights streaked across the windows, but inside the car, there was only the steady rhythm of their breathing. At last, Maya broke the silence. "Why did you do that tonight? Because hiding you was the last lie I was living," Lucas said. "And I don't want lies between us anymore." Her throat tightened. "And if they pull their investments? If they ruin you?" He reached for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers. "Then I'll rebuild." But this time not alone. Tears pricked her eyes. She pressed his hand to her lips, unable to speak. Back at the mansion, the babies stirred as if sensing their parents' return. Maya went to them first, lifting one of the girls and rocking her gently. Lucas joined her, cradling their son. For a long while they stood in the nursery together, surrounded by the fragile miracle of new life. "Maya," Lucas said finally, his voice unsteady in a way she had never heard. She turned. "I want more than to be the father of your children. I want to be the man you trust with your heart. I want you not because of a contract, not because of duty, but because without you, all of this means nothing." Her breath caught. The walls she had built through years of abandonment, of cold nights on the street, of contracts and conditions, began to crumble. "You hurt me when you treated me like a transaction," she whispered. "But you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A home, a family, hope." She reached up, brushing away the moisture that had gathered at the corners of his eyes. "I don't need perfection, Lucas. I just need you to stay." "I will," he vowed, "for as long as you'll have me." In that quiet nursery, surrounded by the gentle breathing of their children, they sealed their promise with a kiss, soft, trembling, but real. Months later, the garden bloomed with late summer roses. Friends gathered for a small ceremony, not of wealth or grandeur, but of love. Chloe stood proudly by their side, tears glistening. The triplets, dressed in white, were passed from arm to arm, laughter and coos filling the air. When Lucas and Maya exchanged vows, their words were simple. He promised to protect her not with contracts, but with devotion. She promised to believe in him not as a billionaire, but as a man who had learned to love. As they kissed beneath the archway of roses, applause and cheers rose around them, but Maya heard only the steady beat of Lucas's heart against hers. Life would not be without struggle. There would be nights of exhaustion, days of uncertainty, challenges money couldn't solve. But together they had chosen something stronger than fear love. And for the first time, both believed it would last.